Wonderful. All right. It's 6 p.m., so I won't, I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight, Michael. So I guess I'll just get started with asking you the first question that I have for you is, what are you most excited for students to experience in Namibia?
Um, you would think I would prepare. Let me pull them up here too.
No, no
Yeah,
worries.
I think it's gonna sound silly, but like line language and landscape, right?
Mhm.
It's such a different place than here in terms of geography. I was out in Eastern Washington this weekend, and there were a couple times we rounded the corner, and I was with my family, and I was like, this kind of has a Namibia-esque kind of vibe.
Oh, interesting.
Um, I think the land itself is stunning
Hmm.
and different and very desolate in terms of absence of people.
Hmm.
Um, but it's easy to kind of my friend Nashi, who's one of the co-faculties, he teaches at the University of Namibia,
Hmm.
kind of talked about the colonialism of like fetishizing the land. And you
Yeah,
want to like not just see it as something that's super exotic,
yeah,
because for the people who live there, it's the norm.
right.
I
Hmm.
think impact wise, one of the things that you'll notice is the absence of people, right? So
Yeah.
everything is relative from where we come from. So here we come from very, very green, very, very populated, very, very, and there it's very sparsely populated. Parts of it are green, but the most part is two deserts,
Hmm.
and uh, dry, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of things that we are not here. Um, and then I think just to experience the country through this lens of art and art making, even if you don't haven't think you have an artistic bone in your body. That's kind of the point, right? Like it doesn't take fancy classes, and the moment you start doing some art, you're an artist. So
Mhm.
I think the interaction between the people, the landscape, and the art making process, what I get excited about.
Absolutely. Oh, that's really wonderful. I particularly like that line of, um, like you don't necessarily have to have been this sort of, this profound artist, right, to have to join this program, right? And I really like that piece that, if you are creating art, you are an artist. I think that's a really wonderful outlook. And I think maybe sometimes when students approach a lot of these programs, they may worry that they may not have the skills to navigate this kind of program or the skills to succeed in those courses. So it is really helpful, I think, to students, for students to know that that you do have those skills, or you do have those assets within you to make a meaningful contribution to the coursework, and then to also partake in it. I think that's great.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, on that note of coursework, what is the coursework like compared to UWT courses?
Right.
Like how does it differ on a study abroad like yours to Namibia?
So this is actually a package of three UWT
Mhm.
courses. So some of it will be rooted in a lot of the same learning outcomes, and it's an intro to creative writing class, but looking at it through a global lens, and then not site specificity in art, three-dimensional art and installation, I think is the name of the other one.
Mhm.
Cultural meaning, and I forget the exact titles. But there are three classes that you could teach in the absence of a study abroad.
Mhm.
The intro to creative writing class we've done in the past is a COIL class where we kind of connect with students through either synchronous like Zoom
Mhm.
or through email kind of correspondence.
Right.
Uh, but this is an opportunity to kind of do that work alongside people and students who live very far from where we are.
Mhm.
Um, and so it makes, I think, the learning process much more active. So even though you could study these things, you could study cultural meaning in art and look at artifacts, to actually be in the place where um, uh, a historical protest or an uprising against apartheid came up, um,
Mhm.
and see the art that was created at that time with the artists who created it. It's just it makes it much more alive and palpable and real, and you realize that art's not stuff you just hang on your wall. Like in this context, culturally, it had a huge has had traditionally a huge impact in kind of cultural, excuse me, national identity, a healing, protest, all the kind of various means that art can serve. So um, the classes necessarily won't differ. They'll feel very similar,
Yeah.
except the stuff that we work with will be alive. There'll be peer writers that we're creating poems with,
Mm-hmm.
the peer visual artists that we'll be working with if it's in an installation piece or
Awesome.
even a performance piece or a movement piece, something like that.
Awesome. Wonderful. And so so they'll be able to make these kinds of collaborations. And will this be in country while they're in Namibia, or will they have a chance sort of while they're here on campus to connect with them like virtually in any way, or is it mostly sort of for the in country
It'll
portion?
be both. So like, the visual art piece will start before we go in country looking at kind of the history of woodblock
Mm-hmm.
print or
Mm-hmm.
cardboard prints in the country, looking at some of the work of John Mofangeo, who's kind of the most famous Namibian
Mm-hmm.
visual artist. And students will be able to kind of like start doing their own prints while we're here,
Oh, awesome.
um, and reflecting on the concept of line, language, and landscape in their own life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll also do some obviously similar parallel things with creative writing, but that we will connect with students in a coil format. So like when we get there, it's not going to be a bunch of faces we've not connected with in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So we could have like an online virtual
Yeah.
Zoom poetry reading or something like that. And
Okay.
then when we get there, the first week will be a series of salons in the city of Windhoek with professional artists.
Okay.
The second week would kind of be an immersed experience out in the desert where we will live side by side with Namibian students, Namibian faculty,
Mm-hmm.
create art in the desert. Not necessarily in the desert, although Tyler has some cool ideas about literally doing it in the desert.
Uh-huh.
Um, and huge amount of cultural interaction there. And then the final week would be turning to Windhoek and kind of doing a final showcase of um, of our work. Can I give one
Yes,
example? I don't want to take too,
absolutely.
but
No,
like one
no,
of the
no
things I
worries.
talked about, like if so a couple of the partner faculty that we worked with
Mm-hmm.
have a background in fashion and textiles
Yeah.
and African printed textiles historically and how that represents cultural impact.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about ways where like perhaps students could as we're making our own woodblock prints, everybody has their own kind of woodblock print, both Namibian students and ours. Could we jointly do some textile fabric printing with those where everybody would have kind of 30 different prints from 12 14 people from our school and the 12 14 people from their school, where you have this piece of textile or blanket or something with literally the artistic fingerprints of 30 people on it.
Yeah.
That's we dreamt big, but we kind of believe that art should emerge as it emerges, and we'll wing it a little bit.
Yeah, of course. I think that that's a really sort of key thing about creating art, right? Is that it sort of kind of flows organically right out of you and in that moment. And so I again very jealous to think that students will get this get this chance as I sit in my little office here in Tacoma. Um, but again, I think that's wonderfully exciting. I still don't see any questions from students, so I guess I'll keep going down our list for now.
Okay.
Um, the next question I have for you is, and I know this will be a little bit interesting, is where do students live while abroad?
Yeah. So the first week and the last week
Hmm.
will be hotel-like
Yeah.
accommodations. There are three universities in Windhoek, two of which will partner with in a practical way. That's University of Namibia, and then the College of the Arts, which is there. And then there's also the Namibian University of Science and Technology,
Okay.
and they
Yeah.
have a campus that's walkable distance to downtown Windhoek, and they actually have a hospitality school, so they run their own hotel.
Oh. Oh
The
wow.
first week and the last week, we would be in Windhoek at the student university run hotel.
Yeah.
Meals are provided, all are included.
Yeah.
Gather for breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you want. If we're doing a field study, we could take it with us. But that would be weeks 1 and 3.
Hmm.
Week 2 would be out in the desert at this place called the Gobabeb Research Center.
Okay.
And it's a series of kind of freestanding, not villas a bit grandiose, like dorm type things, maybe three
Okay.
beds in a room.
Hmm.
But it's cut out of the desert, and so it's very raw in some ways.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then we will be doing field trips where we'll get at least 3 weekends in kind of lodge style hotels,
Hmm.
some camping, platform tents.
Oh, wow.
One of them has outdoor showers. Maybe that gets people excited. Maybe it turns people off, but much
Yeah.
more local camping style stuff on
Yeah.
the
Absolutely. Yes, I can imagine for some students, yeah, that'd be very, very exciting. And for others, I think maybe it'll be like a new experience, but I think regardless, right, it's a kind of way to get thrown into the experience, right, and really feel connected to the place that you are at. To kind of have these like different modes of living, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. I think it's yeah, again, I think it's widely unique and it's like different than if you go on like a vacation somewhere and you stay at like a bougie hotel or something. Right. I feel like that well, while I think it's an experience in and of itself, it does at times feel removed in maybe from the local sort of life of people around you. And so it's I think the different modes are going to be very interesting for students, and I think it would be a really key part of the program,
Yeah.
right? Um, the next question I have for you, Michael, is what about free time? Do students have free time while they're abroad, or kind of what does that look like?
For
Yeah,
sure. I think we would all go crazy if we didn't have free time, right?
yeah, yeah,
I think the question of like how much and then what
yeah,
could be it would be different depending on where we're at.
yeah,
So, in the city of Windhoek, it's very walkable.
yeah,
We're someplace where students can get down and explore on their own when
yeah,
we're not kind of programmed with school activities. In
yeah,
the desert, um, you can do a massive dune hike if you want. If we're not,
yeah,
you can just pick up and walk across the
yeah,
riverbed and climb. We'll have to make sure that like it's buddy system and like some safety stuff. You don't want to
of
get
course.
lost in the desert, literally. And then, like on the field trip parts of it, one of the times we're going to stay in a nationally run lodge in Etosha National Park, which is
Hmm.
where all these watering holes are. And the national lodges are actually built around watering holes. And those kinds of places, like there's swimming pools there. So you can swim, you can lay there, or
Yeah,
you want to the watering hole overlook and see what's at the watering hole, you can do that. Tyler and I did, for example, we had dinner there, and then I was like, I'm gonna go take a look and see what's going on up at the watering hole,
yeah,
and there were probably 40 elephants, 10 giraffes, a bunch of lions that all just kind of came through in the night, and they lighted up at night, so you're able to see them and hear them. And
yeah,
there were probably about 15, 20 people just sitting in silence and watching the moment. And it's not a zoo, right? I mean, and you're protected from them, but they're wild animals, and you're in their space.
yeah.
So
Oh, that's
it depends where we're
mhm.
at, what you do with your free and yeah.
Yeah, amazing, Michael. Oh, I can't even like imagine what that would like be like, right? To see this sort of landscape in and of itself in its form and watching this other aspect of life just happen and occur. Oh, I think that's mind-boggling to me that like you can just walk up and casually see elephants. I think is I think that's just really amazing. Um, well, Michael, I think I have just a couple more minutes with you, and I have just one more question. I don't see any questions from students. I don't know if we have I don't know how many students we have with us, but if there are any questions, feel free to please um, type away. But in that meantime, though, Michael, I'll ask you one last question: Is what's the one piece of advice you'd give to a student who's thinking about study abroad?
The simple piece of advice is do it,
Yeah.
right? Like, don't think about it. I've said that when I've done my class visits, like whether it's this program or another program, um, do it. And if it makes you a little bit nervous, great. Our students are well supported at UWT, both pre, during, and post trip. There's lots of infrastructure. Like if you do have kind of challenging experiences with just like homelessness or things like that, there's lots of resources. It will never be easier to go overseas for an extended period of time than when you're in school. Life gets more complicated as you go on.
Absolutely.
Um, and I would say pick something that excites you, makes you a little nervous, maybe raises more questions than answers. Certain places where you want to go, it's easier to visualize yourself, and other
Mhm.
places you're like, wow, what would that be like?
Yeah.
Um, and then to prepare for challenges, know that you're going into it, and it's not summer camp, right? It will have there'll be hiccups, but that's how we learn.
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful piece of advice to give to students as um, I think there's been a lot of uncertainty in many people's lives over the last few years. And so I think heading into ventures like this can be very daunting and very scary. However, I like in these moments to remember the things that we have been able to go through and have like survived and have led to all these wonderful new opportunities. And I see study abroad as that kind of that little door, right? That door just be able to walk through and experience all these new and exciting and wonderful things that then maybe ask, like open up more questions. I really liked how you put that as for my study abroad. I really went abroad thinking I was gonna like answer all the questions in my life about my identity and all these my place in the world and what I wanted to do, and instead it just like led to more questions, which I think was wonderful though. I think that was an absolutely wonderful thing to happen as it led me down the path of my life that I find myself now, which I think is very, very fulfilling and exciting. So, but yeah, I think it's a wonderful piece of advice for students, and so I really do hope that they students apply to this program and reach out to our office. Reach out to our office if they need support. So, like any students who are joining us now, who are watching this lovely recording, they can email our office at uwtintl@uw.edu. We also have our website and whatnot as well that are all linked in our Instagram bios and then on the website itself, of course. So I don't
And
have anything else, Michael. Was there something? Go ahead. Was there something you want to share?
no, I was going to say, feel free if students have their questions, like email me, right?
Mhm.
I can give a day-by-day itinerary and kind of concrete examples of where we would be in country, what the conditions would be like, what the activities we'd be doing, samples of readings, samples of kind of links to the places we'd stay and see, anything like that that would help people feel a little bit more in the know and confident about this kind of big leap of education.
Absolutely.
Just email me direct.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And students can find, Michael's email or Professor Kula's email on the website as well. And again, we have all kinds of resources too in our Instagram bio. But yes, all kinds of things. Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate you taking your time this evening. And to any students who joined us or again who are watching the recording, thank you so much. But yes, thank you, Michael.
Awesome.
Yes,
Thank you much.
of course. Have a good night. Take care.
Bye.